He thinks he's hacked God's law. By day he silences the Sultan's enemies with a greased bowstring, by night he drowns their ghosts whispering Al-Ghaffaar, until one doomed poet says a sentence that snaps his mind in two. The year is 1595, and the heat rising off the Golden Horn is thick enough to choke a man, smelling of salt, spices, and the rotting refuse of a city that never sleeps. Within the high, imposing walls of the Topkapi Palace, however, the air is perfumed with the dizzying scent of jasmine and crushed tulip petals, a meticulously cultivated paradise designed to mask the stench of fear. If one were to walk the sun-drenched marble of the fourth courtyard, they would see a man of immense stature moving with the silent, gliding grace of a predatory cat. He wears the high, white turban of authority and a kaftan of red silk that ripples like spilled blood against his ankles. To the uninitiated, he appears to be a dignitary, perhaps a scholar or a holy man, for his fingers are constantly moving, counting the beads of a tasbih prayer strand made of polished ebony. But this man is Kara Ali, and his title is Bastanchi Bashi, the head gardener of the Ottoman Empire. It is a title that drips with a cruel, poetic irony, for in the language of the Sublime Porte, the gardening corps does not merely prune the Sultan's roses, they weed out the human thorns that threaten the throne. Kara Ali is a master of a very specific, silent violence. In this gilded cage, the blood of the royal dynasty and high nobility is considered too sacred to spill upon the earth. Swords and axes are crude instruments for common criminals. For the grand viziers, the pashas, and the princes who fall out of favor, death must come without a single drop of red staining the floor. Thus, Kara Ali carries no scimitar at his hip. Instead, tucked discreetly into the folds of his sash, rests a coiled length of greased bowstring. It is an unassuming object, dark with oil and use, yet it commands more terror than 1,000 cannons. When the order comes, usually in the dead of night or under the blinding glare of the noon sun, there is no trial and no shouting. Ali simply appears behind the condemned, his massive hands moving with a speed that defies his size. The loop is thrown, the slack is pulled, and the life is squeezed out of the victim in a matter of agonizing minutes. The terrifying reality of Kara Ali's existence is his terrifying normalcy. He is not a dungeon beast, he is the man who steers the Sultan's imperial barge across the Bosphorus, the man who tends to the delicate hyacinths in the Privy Garden, and the man who stands in the front row at the Hagia Sophia for Friday prayers, his head bowed in seemingly devout submission. He is a bureaucrat of death. As he walks through the courtyard on this particular morning, the silence that follows him is heavy and suffocating. The palace pages, young boys with eyes wide as saucers, press themselves against the walls to let him pass, holding their breath until he turns the corner. They know that to look him in the eye is to invite misfortune. Ali ignores them, his thumb pushing the next bead on his string, his lips moving in a soundless rhythm. He is preparing himself. Today, the palace whispers of a transition, a shifting of power that will require his specific talents. The old Sultan is dead, and the new Sultan, Mehmed III, has ascended the throne with a heart as cold as the marble beneath Ali's feet. The head gardener knows that the harvest is coming. He can feel the tension vibrating in the very stones of the palace, a prelude to a storm of violence that will test the limits of his soul. He tightens his grip on the prayer beads, the wood creaking under the pressure of his calloused thumb, and heads toward the nursery, where the true horror of his duty awaits. The heavy oak doors of the pavilion of the Holy Mantle swing shut, sealing out the light of the world, and the air inside instantly grows thick with a silence so profound it presses against the eardrums like deep water. It is the 28th day of January in the year 1595, a date that will be burned into the Ottoman memory like a brand upon flesh. Kara Ali stands on the threshold of the royal nursery, the inner sanctum where the sons of the late Sultan Murad III are kept sequestered from the political machinations of the court. The room is dimly lit by flickering oil lamps that cast long, dancing shadows against walls covered in exquisite Islamic tiles, their floral patterns mocking the grim reality of what is about to occur. The floor is piled high with plush Persian carpets, thick enough to muffle the sound of footsteps, or the thud of a falling body. Ali is not alone. Behind him stand 4 assistants, men chosen specifically for their inability to speak or hear, their tongues slit and their eardrums pierced years ago to ensure total discretion. They are the mute ghosts of the palace, tools that cannot testify, moving in perfect synchronization with their master. Tonight, the order is absolute, dictated by the ruthless code of House Osman, which states that the sovereign may, for the welfare of the state, put his brothers to death to prevent the chaos of civil war. It is a logic of cold steel and spilled blood, sanctified by the highest religious authorities, yet as Kara Ali looks across the room, the political necessity crumbles before the sheer, visceral horror of the task. Scattered across the divans and low tables are 19 princes. They are not rebels leading armies, they are children. The eldest is barely a young man, frozen in terror as he recognizes the white turban of the head gardener, while the youngest are mere infants, some still swaddled in silk, sleeping soundly in their cribs or playing with wooden toys, oblivious to the monsters standing in the doorway. The scent in the room is a nauseating mix of sweet milk, rosewater, and the sharp, metallic tang of fear that begins to radiate from the older boys who understand why the death squad has arrived. Kara Ali steps forward, his movements deliberate and unhurried, for panic makes the hands shake, and a shaking hand cannot deliver a clean death. He does not draw a weapon. There is no flash of a blade, for the blood of the dynasty is forbidden to touch the ground. Instead, he reaches into his sash and withdraws the bowstring, a length of cord made from twisted silk and gut, greased with tallow until it is slick and black. He signals to the mutes. They move like wraiths, separating the crying nurses from their charges, dragging the weeping women out of the room until only the executioners and the victims remain. The door locks with a finality that echoes in the hollow of Ali's chest. He approaches the first prince, a boy of perhaps 10 years, who tries to scramble backward over the cushions, his mouth opening to scream for a father who is already dead. Ali is faster. His massive hand clamps over the boy's mouth, stifling the cry into a muffled whimper, while the other hand whips the greased cord around the tender neck. What follows is a mechanical, industrial process of extermination that defies the human capacity for empathy. Kara Ali enters a trance state, a necessary dissociation to keep his own sanity from fracturing. He works with the rhythm of a harvester in a field of wheat. The loop tightens. The knuckles whiten. The bowstring digs into soft flesh, cutting off the windpipe and the arteries in a matter of seconds. He feels the frantic drumming of a small pulse against his thumb, a fluttering bird trapped in a cage, beating wildly and then slowing, until it stops completely. There is no sound of battle, only the rustle of silk, the soft scuffling of feet on wool carpets, and the sickening, wet snap of cartilage giving way under immense pressure. One by one, the heirs to the empire are extinguished. The infants are the worst. They do not fight, they simply look up with wide, confused eyes as the darkness descends, their small hands grasping at the rough fabric of Ali's kaftan even as he chokes the life from them. As the body count rises, the physical toll on the executioner becomes immense. Sweat pours down Ali's face, stinging his eyes, mixing with the tears he does not realize he is shedding. His muscles burn from the exertion of strangling 19 human beings in succession. The room, once a place of laughter and play, transforms into a silent morgue. The bodies are laid out in a row on the central carpet, a grotesque lineup of small, lifeless forms arranged by height, their faces turning the mottled purple of asphyxiation. The silence that returns to the room after the 19th prince falls is heavier than the one before. It is a silence that screams. Kara Ali stands over the carnage, his chest heaving, the greased bowstring dangling from his limp hand like a dead snake. He looks at his hands, expecting to see them stained red, but they are clean. That is the true horror of the Ottoman way, there is no blood to wash away, no physical evidence of the violence other than the bruising on the necks and the stillness of the lungs. The deed is done. The stability of the throne is secured. But as Ali turns to leave, stepping over a discarded wooden toy horse, the weight of 19 souls settles onto his shoulders, a spectral burden that will crush him slowly, day by day, until there is nothing left of the man but the monster he was forced to become. The door opens, and the cold air of the corridor rushes in, but it cannot purge the stench of death that now clings to his skin, a scent that no amount of rosewater will ever mask. The silence of the nursery is left behind, but a different kind of silence awaits Kara Ali in the bowels of the earth. Leaving the scene of the 19 murders, the head gardener does not return to his quarters to sleep, nor does he go to the hammam to bathe in hot steam and soapsuds like a civilized man. Instead, he descends. He moves through the labyrinthine corridors of the harem service quarters, slipping past the sleeping eunuchs and the guards who turn a blind eye to his passing, guided by a singular, burning compulsion that itches beneath his skin like a parasite. He heads for the stone stairs that spiral down beneath the third courtyard, down into the ancient, weeping underbelly of the city that was once Constantinople. Here lies the subterranean network of cisterns, vast cathedral-like reservoirs built by emperors dead 1,000 years before the first minaret rose over the skyline. The air grows colder with every step, the humidity rising until it slicks his beard and clings to his silk kaftan like a second, clammy skin. The smell here is ancient and mineral, the scent of stagnant water, wet limestone, and the slow, geological decay of the world. It is a place where the sun has never touched, a place of shadows and echoes, perfect for a man who carries a darkness that cannot be exposed to the light of day. Kara Ali reaches the water's edge, where the black liquid stretches out into the gloom, supported by hundreds of marble columns salvaged from forgotten pagan temples. The only light comes from the single oil lantern he carries, its flame sputtering in the damp air, casting long, distorted reflections on the water that look uncomfortably like floating bodies. He sets the lantern on a moss-slicked stone and falls to his knees. This is his sanctuary. This is his confessional. He plunges his hands into the water. It is freezing, a shock of ice that should numb the nerves, but Ali feels nothing but the burning heat of the phantom blood he imagines coating his fingers. He begins to scrub. He rubs his hands together with a violence that borders on self-mutilation, the friction turning his skin raw and red. In the nursery, there was no blood, the physics of strangulation are clean. But in Ali's mind, he is covered in it. He feels the sticky residue of 19 young souls clinging to his calluses, seeping into his pores, staining the very marrow of his bones. He scrubs until the skin breaks, until real blood begins to mix with the water of the cistern, swirling away into the darkness, an offering of pain to balance the scales of his deed. It is here, in this sepulchral gloom, that the true ritual begins, a secret habit that no chronicle will ever record, a private heresy born of desperation. Kara Ali pulls his tasbih, the string of 99 prayer beads carved from dense, heavy ebony, from his sash. His hands, wet and trembling, grip the beads with a force that threatens to crush them. He closes his eyes, shutting out the columns and the black water, and begins to whisper. He does not recite the Fatiha or the standard prayers of the faithful. He invokes only one name, over and over again, a single attribute of God chosen with the precision of a lawyer seeking a loophole in a contract. Al-Ghaffaar. The forgiving. The veiler of sins. In Islamic theology, Al-Ghaffaar is not merely one who forgives, it is the one who covers, the one who hides the ugliness of the sinner's deeds, the one who repeatedly absolves the repeated offender. It is a name of infinite capacity, a divine sponge that wipes the slate clean no matter how many times it is sullied. Ya Ghaffaar. Ya Ghaffaar. Ya Ghaffaar. The words tumble from his lips, first as a whisper, then as a rhythmic chant that matches the frantic beating of his heart. With every repetition, his thumb snaps a bead forward. Click. 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 The sound echoes off the vaulted ceiling, multiplying until it sounds like 1,000 insects skittering in the dark. Ali is not praying for redemption in the spiritual sense, he is not asking to be a better man. He is engaging in a transaction. He believes that the sheer volume of the invocation acts as a counterweight to the gravity of his sins. 19 princes dead. Then he will say the name 19,000 times. He views the divine attribute as a mechanism, a faucet of mercy that can be forced open if one twists the handle hard enough. He rocks back and forth on his knees, the stone biting into his flesh, sweat mixing with the cistern water on his face. He is trying to induce a trance, a state of oblivion where the memory of the youngest prince's eyes, wide, confused, trusting, will be erased by the white noise of the chant. For hours, the Bustanchi Bashi remains there, a hulking silhouette against the flickering lantern light. The dampness seeps into his joints, aching and deep, but he does not stop. He counts the beads until his thumb is blistered. He whispers the name until his throat is dry as parchment. He is trying to wash his soul as he washed his hands, scrubbing away the stain of the fratricide. And slowly, terrifyingly, it begins to work. The horror of the nursery starts to recede, pushed back behind a wall of repetitive sound. The faces of the dead boys blur and fade, replaced by the hypnotic rhythm of Al-Ghaffaar. A strange, narcotic peace settles over him, a delusion of purity. He convinces himself that he is not a murderer, but a servant of destiny, purified by the very God who ordained the Sultan's rise. The heavy, crushing guilt lifts, leaving him light, hollow, and dangerously absolved. But there is a toxicity to this ritual. By reducing forgiveness to a mathematical equation, sin plus invocation equals 0, Kara Ali is destroying his own conscience. He is numbing the very part of his soul that signals danger. As he rises from his knees in the early hours of the morning, just as the first call to prayer begins to drift down from the minarets above, he is no longer the shaking man who entered the cistern. He is calm. His hands are raw but steady. He tucks the prayer beads back into his sash, right next to the greased bowstring. The beads and the weapon sit side by side, two tools of his trade, one to take life, the other to erase the consequence. He climbs the stairs back to the surface, emerging into the grey light of dawn, ready to serve his sultan again. He believes he has been cleansed. He believes the slate is wiped clean. But as he walks back into the waking palace, the shadows of the cistern seem to cling to his robe, stretching out behind him, longer and darker than before. He has not found salvation, he has merely built a dam to hold back a river of blood, and he does not realize that the pressure behind that dam is building, rising with every beat of his heart, waiting for the moment the walls will inevitably burst. The monster has not been tamed, it has been baptized. Time, in the shadow of the top copy, does not heal all wounds. For men like Kara Ali, time merely allows the infection to fester, turning the soul gangrenous beneath the pristine white silk of courtly attire. Months bleed into years following the night of the 19 princes, and the head gardener's descent into a spiritual madness accelerates with the terrifying momentum of a falling stone. The ritual in the cistern, once a desperate act of penance, has mutated into a grotesque addiction. The invocation of Al-Ghaffaar is no longer a plea for mercy, it has become a permission slip. Ali begins to crave the assignment, his blood quickening not at the prospect of violence itself, but at the anticipation of the cleansing that follows. He becomes a creature of binary existence, the sin and the sponge, the stain and the solvent. He executes a vizier for embezzlement at noon, and by the afternoon prayer, he is scrubbing his hands in the dark water, whispering the name, feeling the rush of artificial purity flood his veins like opium. The prayer beads, once distinct and ridges against his thumb, are now worn smooth, polished by the friction of thousands of frantic repetitions, the wood eroding under the weight of his guilt. He believes he has hacked the divine code, that he has found a way to serve the Sultan's cruelty while keeping his own passport to paradise stamped and valid. But the Almighty is not a merchant to be bartered with, and the soul is not a ledger where red ink can be simply written over with black until the page tears. The breaking point arrives on a suffocatingly humid night in late August of the year 1599. The air hangs heavy over Constantinople, thick with the drone of cicadas and the oppressive heat that refuses to lift even after the sun has dipped below the horizon. The summons comes directly from the Kisler Aga, the chief black eunuch. A discreet elimination is required, not within the palace walls this time, but across the water, in a lonely yali, a waterfront mansion, clinging to the Asian shore of the Bosphorus. The target is a man named Iskender Pasha, a figure who serves as a dark mirror to Kara Ali himself. Iskender was once the Sultan's golden boy, a poet and a courtier whose wit was as sharp as Ali's bowstring, a man who had risen from nothing to stand at the right hand of power. But the wheel of fortune in the Ottoman court turns with bone-crushing speed, a whispered rumor, a misplaced jest, a suspicion of ambition, and Iskender has been cast out, exiled to his seaside home to wait for the inevitable knock at the door. Ali knows this man. He has stood guard while Iskender recited verses to the Sultan in the Privy Gardens. He has seen the man's arrogance, his charm, and his fall. To kill him is to kill a ghost of the court's past glory. Kara Ali boards the royal kaik, a slender, needle-like boat rowed by 3 of his mute assistants. The oars cut the black water of the Bosphorus with barely a splash, the silence of the journey amplified by the rhythmic creaking of the wood. Ali sits in the stern, the humidity plastering his shirt to his back, his hand instinctively clutching the sash where the bowstring and the beads rest side by side. He feels a strange unease tonight, a vibration in his chest that he cannot suppress with his usual mantras. The water around them looks like ink, vast and indifferent, and for a moment, Ali wonders if the cistern is deep enough to wash away what he is about to do. He dismisses the thought. He has the name. He has the ritual. He is safe. The boat glides up to the wooden quay of the mansion, the water lapping gently against the piling. The house is dark, save for a single light burning in a window on the second floor, a solitary eye staring out into the void. Ali signals the oarsman to wait. He steps onto the dock, the wood groaning softly under his immense weight, and moves toward the house with the familiarity of a recurring nightmare. There are no guards. When the Bastanchi Bashi comes, guards tend to vanish, knowing that to intervene is to join the condemned. He finds Iskender Pasha on a balcony overlooking the water, sitting on a low cushion, a partially consumed pitcher of wine beside him, a final, flagrant violation of Islamic law for a man who knows he has nothing left to lose. The former favorite is gaunt, his finery threadbare, his face etched with the lines of a man who has spent months staring at the horizon, waiting for the executioner's ship. He does not jump when Ali steps from the shadows. He does not scream or beg or try to run. He simply turns his head, his eyes glassy with intoxication and a terrifying clarity, and smiles. It is a sad, knowing smile that chills Ali to the marrow. Kara Ali, the Pasha says, his voice raspy but steady. The angel of death arrives on silent feet. I expected you 3 nights ago. Ali says nothing. The protocol demands silence. He reaches into his sash, his fingers brushing the warm, smooth wood of the prayer beads before wrapping around the cold, greasy coil of the bowstring. He steps forward, the floorboards creaking, filling the space with his looming presence. He expects the struggle now, the sudden panic that grips even the bravest men when the abstract concept of death becomes a physical reality. But Iskender does not move. He picks up his cup, swirls the dark red liquid, and looks directly at Ali's waist. I see you brought your beads, Iskender whispers, his gaze piercing through the silk of Ali's sash as if he possesses the sight of a jinni. I have heard the stories, gardener. The palace walls have ears, and the cisterns have echoes. Ali freezes. His hand tightens on the cord. This is impossible. His ritual is a secret, a pact between him and the dark. You think you are clever, the Pasha continues, setting the cup down with a deliberate clink. You think you have found a loophole in God's law. You strangle the breath from God's creations, and then you run to the water to say his name, as if Al-Ghaffaar is a rag to wipe up spilled wine. The words strike Ali like physical blows. He takes a step back, his composure cracking. How does this man know? Silence, Ali rasps, his voice a gravelly growl that he barely recognizes. He unfurls the bowstring, stretching it between his massive hands, the grease gleaming in the moonlight. Make your peace, Iskender. The Sultan commands it. Iskender stands up, swaying slightly, but his eyes are locked onto Ali's with a ferocity that burns. He steps into the reach of the executioner, baring his neck, offering himself up not in defeat, but in challenge. I have made my peace, the poet says softly. But you will never find yours. Do you know the truth of the name you abuse? He leans in, so close that Ali can smell the sour wine on his breath. The forgiver forgives those who stop. Mercy is for the repentant, not the mechanic. You have never stopped. You never will. You are not washing your hands, Ali, you are drowning in your own delusion. The truth of the statement is a razor blade slicing through the callus of Ali's denial. It is a theological checkmate. The ritual is a lie. The transaction is void. Panic, hot and white, explodes behind Ali's eyes. He cannot let this man speak another word. He cannot let this mirror show him his own face any longer. With a roar of animal fury, Kara Ali lunges. He throws the loop over Iskender's head, not with the cold precision of a professional, but with the frantic, messy violence of a man trying to silence his own conscience. He jerks the cord tight, biting deep into the throat, cutting off the voice that spoke the truth. Iskender trashes, his hands clawing at Ali's wrists, his legs kicking over the wine pitcher, sending a red stain spreading across the balcony floor. But Ali does not just strangle him, he crushes him. He tightens the cord with hysterical strength, his teeth gritted, his own breath coming in ragged gasps. Die, he thinks. Die and take the truth with you. He squeezes until the Pasha's struggles cease, until the body goes limp, until the neck is unnaturally twisted. But even after the heart has stopped, Ali keeps pulling, his eyes squeezed shut, waiting for the silence to return. He waits for the familiar numbness, the professional detachment. But it does not come. Instead, a sound begins. It starts low, a hum at the base of his skull, like the vibration of a plucked string that refuses to decay. It rises in pitch, a high, thin frequency that pierces the eardrums. Re-ee-ee-ee. Ali drops the body. It hits the floor with a wet thud. He stumbles back, his hands flying to his ears, but the sound is not coming from the outside. It is internal. It is the sound of the dam breaking. He reaches for his sash, his fingers scrabbling for the prayer beads, the safety line. He pulls them out, his blood-slicked fingers fumbling over the smooth wood. Ya Ghaffaar, he tries to whisper. Ya Ghaffaar. But the words turn to ash in his mouth. He cannot say it. The connection is severed. The name refuses to be spoken. And then, the auditory hallucination shifts. The ringing twists and morphs into a voice. The forgiver forgives those who stop. It is Iskender's voice. Then another joins it, a high, terrified whimper. Baba. It is the voice of the 10-year-old prince from the nursery. Then another. And another. The balcony fills with the phantom sounds of choking, the rustle of silk, the snapping of vertebrae, a cacophony of the dead layering over one another in a deafening crescendo. Kara Ali falls to his knees on the balcony, the dead poet staring at him with open, glassy eyes that seem to judge him even in death. He clutches the bead so hard the string snaps. The ebony spheres scatter across the floor, rolling through the puddle of spilled wine, clicking against the wood like the footsteps of tiny ghosts. He scrambles to catch them, scrabbling on all fours, panting, weeping, trying to gather the fragments of his salvation, but they roll off the edge of the balcony, falling into the black water of the Bosphorus below with tiny, insignificant splashes. Gone. The tool is broken. The ritual is shattered. The silence is gone forever. Kara Ali is alone on the balcony with a corpse and a choir of screaming memories that will never, ever sleep again. He looks at his hands, shaking, powerful, useless, and for the first time in his life, he understands the true meaning of hell. It is not a place of fire, it is a place where you cannot close your eyes, and you cannot close your ears, and the water is always, always dry. The monster has not just killed a man tonight, he has killed the only thing that kept him human. The slide into the abyss is no longer a possibility, it is a freefall. The disintegration of a man's soul is rarely a quiet event, it is a structural collapse, a slow-motion demolition where the supports give way one by one until the entire edifice comes crashing down in a cloud of choking dust. Following the night at the Yali on the Asian shore, Kara Ali returns to the Topkapi Palace not as a servant of the state, but as a vessel of chaos. The loss of his prayer beads, those 99 polished spheres of ebony that now rest at the bottom of the Bosphorus, rolling in the silt with the bones of drowned sailors, has stripped him of his psychic armor. Without the tactile sensation of the wood against his thumb, without the mechanical rhythm of the count to drown out the world, he is left defenseless against the invasion of his own memories. The silence he cultivated for decades has been breached. The dam has burst. For 3 days and 3 nights, the head gardener does not sleep. To close his eyes is to invite the theater of the dead to begin its performance. He wanders the perimeter of the palace walls like a rabid dog, his eyes rimmed with red, his skin assuming the grey, pasty complexion of the corpses he handles. The other servants, the pages, and even the formidable janissaries begin to give him a wide berth, sensing a radioactive instability radiating from him. He is no longer the terrifying shadow, he is a walking scream. The internal auditory hallucination that began on the balcony, the high, thin ringing, has metabolized into a complex, polyphonic choir. It is a cacophony of gasps. Wherever he goes, he hears the wet, desperate intake of breath that precedes the crushing of a windpipe. He hears the snap of cartilage. He hears the soft thud of small bodies hitting the floor. It is a loop, a recording played at maximum volume inside the bone chamber of his skull, relentlessly overlaying the reality of the court. When the muezzin calls the faithful to prayer from the minarets, Ali does not hear the words of God, he hears the pleading of the 19 princes. When the fountains in the courtyard splash, he does not hear water, he hears the gurgling of Iskandar Pasha drowning in his own blood. The madness reaches its zenith in the place that should have been his sanctuary, the imperial gardens. It is the height of the tulip season, a period of obsession for the Ottoman court. The gardens are a masterpiece of horticultural engineering, rows upon rows of crimson, saffron, and purple blooms arranged in geometric perfection, symbolizing the divine order of the universe. As the Bastanchi Bashi, Ali is the guardian of this beauty. He is responsible for every bulb, every petal, every leaf. But as he walks among the flower beds under the blinding glare of the midday sun, the optics of the world begin to warp. The sleep deprivation and the psychic guilt conspire to rewrite his sensory input. He looks down at a bed of ram's head tulips, tall, regal flowers with deep red petals and black centers, and he does not see flowers. The hallucination is visceral and total. The petals morph into velvet caftans. The green stems thicken and pulse, turning into the tender, vulnerable necks of young boys. The black centers are not stamens, they are open, gasping mouths, 19 of them, swaying in the breeze, screaming silently for mercy. Kara Ali stops. The basket of gardening tools drops from his hand. He falls to his knees in the dirt, the fine silk of his uniform staining with mud. His breath comes in short, ragged hitches. He tries to look away, but the garden is alive with his victims. Every flower is a head. Every bush is a crouching accuser. The cypress trees are the looming spirits of the executioners he trained. The reality of the Topkapi dissolves, replaced by a waking nightmare where the vegetation itself is judging him. I stopped, he whispers to the dirt, his voice trembling. I stopped. I stopped. But the flowers do not believe him. They sway towards him, mocking him with their beauty. The red of the tulips becomes the red of oxygen-starved faces. The rustle of the leaves becomes the whisper of the name he can no longer speak, Al-Ghaffaar, Al-Ghaffaar, Al-Ghaffaar. But now, the name burns. It is not a salve, it is an indictment. The forgiver has turned his back. Then, the snap occurs. It is a physical sensation in his brain, like a bowstring breaking under too much tension. Kara Ali lets out a roar that shatters the decorum of the fourth courtyard, a sound so primal and filled with anguish that it causes the birds to take flight from the trees. He lunges at the flower bed. His massive hands, those instruments of precision death, become weapons of indiscriminate destruction. He grabs the tulips by their throats. He strangles the flowers. He rips them from the earth, bulbs and all, snapping the stems with the same motion he used to snap the vertebrae of the Ottoman elite. Die, he screams, froth gathering at the corners of his mouth. Die. Why would not you stay dead? Why are you still breathing? He crawls through the garden on his hands and knees, leaving a trail of devastation in his wake. He decapitates the hyacinths. He crushes the roses, not caring that the thorns tear his palms to ribbons, mixing his real blood with the sap of the destroyed plants. It is a massacre of nature, a proxy war against the ghosts that have colonized his mind. He is trying to silence the garden, trying to choke the life out of the earth itself because the earth refuses to keep his secrets. He moves with a terrifying speed, a whirlwind of red silk and flying dirt, muttering the count of the beads that are no longer there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Snap. 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 He is reenacting the massacre of the nursery, projecting the trauma onto the Sultan's prized collection. The beauty of the garden is being unmade, just as the humanity of the gardener was unmade years ago. From the high terrace of the Revan kiosk, a shadow watches. It is Sultan Mehmed III, the man who ordered the deaths that drove Ali mad. He stands flanked by two mute guards, looking down at the spectacle with eyes that hold no pity, only a cold, calculating disappointment. He sees his head gardener, the most feared man in the empire, rolling in the mud, fighting with flowers, weeping like a broken child. The Sultan does not see a tragedy, he sees a malfunction. In the machinery of the empire, a gear has stripped its teeth. A tool has become blunt. And in the ruthless logic of the House of Osman, a broken tool is not repaired, it is discarded. The Sultan raises a single, bejeweled hand and makes a cutting motion, sharp, precise, final. The order is given. The protection of the throne is withdrawn. The hunter is now the prey. The palace guards, men who once trembled at the sound of Ali's footsteps, now approach him with spears leveled. They do not rush, they are cautious, for even a mad lion has claws. But they need not have worried. When they surround him, Kara Ali does not fight back. He has collapsed in the center of the ruined flower bed, surrounded by the severed heads of 1,000 tulips. He is panting, his chest heaving, his hands covered in green sap and red blood. He looks up at the circle of steel points, his eyes clearing for a brief, lucid moment. The hallucinations recede, leaving only the grim reality of his position. He sees the faces of the guards, young men, some of whom he trained. He sees the fear and the disgust in their eyes. He realizes, with a jolt of clarifying horror, that the silence has finally returned. But it is not the peace of absolution. It is the silence of the end. He tries to stand, but his legs fail him. The strength that allowed him to squeeze the life out of viziers and pashas has evaporated. He is just a man. A tired, broken man sitting in the dirt. He looks at his hands, expecting to see the prayer beads, but sees only the mud under his fingernails. He realizes that there is no washing this away. The cistern cannot hold this much darkness. The Bosphorus is not deep enough. Al-Ghaffaar, he whispers one last time, but it is not a prayer. It is a question. A question directed at a sky that is blue, empty, and terrifyingly indifferent. Two guards step forward and grab him by the arms. They haul him up, his silk kaftan heavy with filth. He does not resist. He allows himself to be dragged away from the sunlight, away from the ruined garden, towards the looming shadow of the Yedikul fortress, the castle of the 7 towers. As he is led away, he looks back one last time at the palace. He sees the golden dome, the cypress trees, the beauty that hides the rot. He realizes that he was never the gardener. He was the weed. And now, the great gardener has come to prune him. The heavy wooden gates of the inner courtyard slam shut behind him, the sound echoing like a thunderclap, sealing his fate. The walk to the fortress is long and dusty, a parade of shame through the streets of the city he terrorized. The common people watch in silence, sensing that a titan has fallen. But Kara Ali sees none of them. He is staring into the middle distance, listening to the return of the ringing in his ears, a sound that is growing louder, sharper, transforming into the grinding mechanical noise of the ultimate justice that awaits him in the dark. The chapter of his power is closed, the chapter of his payment has begun. The dungeon of the Yedikul fortress does not smell like a prison, it smells like the digestion of a stone beast that has been swallowing men for 200 years. It is a deep, subterranean pit known as the blood well, a place where the humidity is so intense it feels as though the air itself is sweating, weeping slick rivulets of condensation down walls that have been scratched by the fingernails of desperate grand viziers and fallen princes. It is here, in the suffocating dark of the year 1600, that Kara Ali sits, his once pristine robes reduced to tattered rags, his massive frame hunched over on the cold, slime-covered floor. The darkness is absolute, save for the faint, taunting gray light that filters down from a grate far above, a single eye of God that watches but does not intervene. The silence here is different from the silence of the cisterns or the nursery. It is not a silence of peace, nor of stealth. It is a heavy, expectant silence, the kind that hangs in the air before a thunderstorm, charged with the static electricity of imminent violence. Ali has been here for 3 days, or perhaps 3 weeks. Time has dissolved in the dark, losing its structure just as his mind has lost its tether. He is no longer the Bastanchi Bashi, the shadow of the Sultan. He is simply meat, waiting for the butcher. In this sensory deprivation, Kara Ali's mind has become a torture chamber of vivid, hallucinatory clarity. Without his prayer beads to anchor him, his hands are restless, clawing at the filth on the floor, tracing the grooves in the stone left by previous tenants. He tries to summon the name, the divine attribute that served as his shield for so long. Al-Ghaffaar, he thinks. Al-Ghaffaar. But the word refuses to form on his tongue. It feels heavy, like a stone in his mouth. The theology that once comforted him, the idea of a God who covers sins as a gardener covers dead roots with fresh soil, now feels like a cruel joke. He realizes, with a creeping dread that chills him more than the damp dungeon air, that forgiveness was never a transaction. It was a transformation. And he has not transformed, he has only accumulated. He is a vessel brimming with black water, and the glass is about to shatter. The irony is sharp enough to cut. The man who specialized in the silent, traceless death is now trapped in a silence he cannot control, waiting for the very medicine he administered to so many others. The heavy iron screech of the door opening above shatters the stillness. A shaft of torchlight stabs into the pit, blinding Ali, forcing him to shield his eyes like a cowering animal. The sound of boots on stone steps echoes down, a rhythmic, deliberate cadence that he knows better than his own heartbeat. He knows exactly who is coming. He knows how they walk. He knows how they breathe. He trained them. Down the spiral stairs come 4 figures, their shadows stretching out long and distorted against the curved walls of the well. They are the Dailais, the mutes. They wear the black leather tunics of the executioner corps, their faces masked, their arms bare and thick with muscle. Leading them is a man Ali recognizes by the scar on his forearm, a burn mark from a misfired musket years ago. It is, the mute Yusuf, his most promising student, a man who Ali himself taught to tie the knot, to grease the string, to find the sweet spot on the windpipe that crushes the larynx instantly. It is a reunion of ghosts, a dark mirror held up to Ali's face. The master is about to be dismantled by his own creation. There are no words spoken. There is no need. The mutes do not speak, and Ali has nothing left to say to men who cannot hear him. They surround him with a practiced efficiency, moving into position at the 4 cardinal points, blocking any potential escape, though there is nowhere to run. The torchlight flickers, casting dancing shadows that make the executioners look like demons summoned from the underworld. Yusuf steps forward. He does not look Ali in the eye, he looks at his neck. It is a professional gaze, cold and assessing, checking the circumference, the muscle density, calculating the tension required. In that look, Ali sees the absolute erasure of his humanity. To Yusuf, he is not a mentor, nor a father figure, nor a legend. He is a task. He is a weeds that needs pulling. Ali feels a strange, perverse spike of pride. He taught the boy well, followed instantly by a tidal wave of terror that crashes through his stoicism. This is real. This is the end. The abstraction of death, which he had wielded like a scepter for decades, has finally solidified into a physical object. Yusuf reaches into his sash. The sound of the leather rubbing against fabric is deafening in the small space. He pulls out the bowstring. It is black, glistening with fresh tallow, coiled like a sleeping viper. Ali stares at it. It is the same tool. The same gauge. Perhaps even the same string he used on the 19 princes. The circularity of it makes him dizzy. The universe is closing a loop. Yusuf uncoils the string, testing its strength with a sharp tug between his hands. Snap. The sound triggers a physiological panic in Ali's body. His heart hammers against his ribs like a trapped bird. His lungs hyperventilate, greedy for the air that is about to be denied to them. He tries to scramble backward, his heels slipping in the slime, but 2 of the other mutes step in, grabbing his arms. Their grip is like iron. They force him to his knees, forcing him into the posture of prayer, the posture of submission. They hold him steady, just as he taught them to hold the Grand Viziers, ensuring the target cannot thrash and ruin the clean break. The loop descends. It feels cold and greasy against the skin of his throat, a sensation so familiar and yet so alien. It settles into the groove between his chin and his collarbone. Ali's breath hitches. This is the moment. The final threshold. In his mind, a desperate, screaming command overrides the panic. Say it. You must say it. One last time. If he can speak the name, if he can vibrate the air with the attribute of mercy as his soul departs, perhaps the ledger will balance. Perhaps the gates of paradise will not be barred. He draws in a massive, ragged breath, filling his lungs to capacity, preparing to shout the word Al-Ghaffaar into the face of the void. He opens his mouth. His tongue shapes the first syllable. Al. But Yusuf is faster. With a brutal, violent jerk, the executioner twists the toggle at the back of the neck. The bowstring bites. It does not merely tighten, it slams shut like a steel trap. The force is catastrophic. It crushes the trachea instantly, collapsing the windpipe into a flat, useless ribbon of cartilage. The sound Ali tries to make, the holy invocation, the plea for salvation, never leaves his body. It is strangled in the cradle of his throat. His mouth gapes open, a silent scream of absolute horror, but nothing comes out but a wet, gurgling hiss. The air is trapped in his lungs, burning like fire, unable to escape, unable to form words. The irony is total. The forgiver cannot be named by the man who has no breath. The veiler of sins cannot be called upon by a man whose voice has been stolen by his own method. Kara Ali is denied the one thing he believed was his birthright, the last word. The world explodes into red and black. The pain is blinding, a white-hot spike driving through the center of his skull. He thrashes, his body convulsing in the primal, animalistic struggle to breathe, but the mutes hold him fast. They are immovable statues, indifferent to his suffering. He looks up, his eyes bulging, capillaries bursting, turning his vision into a blood-soaked vignette. He sees Yusuf's face above him, impassive, focused on the work. He sees the torchlight blurring. He feels the pressure building in his head, an immense, crushing weight as the blood is trapped in his brain, unable to drain back to the heart. The roaring in his ears returns, the sound of the nursery, the sound of the garden, the sound of the cistern, now amplified to the volume of 1,000 cannons. It is the sound of 19 princes screaming. It is the sound of Iskandar Pasha laughing. It is the sound of every flower he ever beheaded, every life he ever shortened, crashing down upon him in a sonic avalanche. In these final, agonizing seconds, which stretch out into an eternity of synaptic firing, Kara Ali realizes the ultimate truth that had eluded him in the cisterns. There is no cheat code. There is no magic word. The name of God is not an eraser, it is a mirror. And what he sees in the mirror now is not a man being washed clean, but a monster being devoured by its own shadow. He tries to repent. He tries to think the word even if he cannot speak it. Mercy, his mind screams. Mercy. But the darkness is rising, a cold black tide swallowing his consciousness from the feet up. His hands, which had killed so many, twitch uselessly at his sides, the fingers curling into claws. His heart gives a final, stuttering flutter, a bird hitting a wall, and then stops. The roaring ceases. The pain vanishes. The light of the torch fades into a tiny, distant star, and then winks out. Kara Ali, the Bastanchi Bashi, the head gardener of the Ottoman Empire, dies in the dark, his face purple, his tongue swollen, his lips frozen in the shape of a prayer that was never heard. Yusuf holds the tension for a full 3 minutes, counting the seconds in his head, just as Ali had taught him. 180 seconds to ensure the soul has fled. Only then does he relax the cord. The body slumps forward, hitting the wet stone with a heavy, meat-like thud. The mutes stand back, breathing heavily in the damp air. They do not pray. They do not celebrate. They simply wipe the grease from their hands onto their leather tunics. Yusuf looks down at his former master one last time. He sees the terror etched onto the dead face, the open mouth that tried to speak and failed. He feels a flicker of something, not pity, but a cold understanding. The garden has been weeded. The cycle is complete. They do not bury him. A man who kills the Sultan's blood is not entitled to a grave, nor a stone, nor a prayer. They wrap the massive body in a rough hemp sack, weighing it down with heavy stones from the fortress wall. Under the cover of darkness, they drag the sack through the tunnels, out to the sea gate where the black waters of the Sea of Marmara lap against the rocks. They swing the sack between them, 1, 2, 3, and heave it into the deep. It splashes and sinks instantly, spiraling down into the cold, crushing depths. There is no marker. There is no memory. Kara Ali, who sought to wash his hands of sin in the cisterns, is finally washed away by the ocean, dissolved into the salt and the dark, food for the fish and the crabs. Above, in the Topkapi Palace, the sun rises over the Golden Horn. The call to prayer rings out from the blue mosque, beautiful and clear, echoing over the waking city. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. The gardeners are already awake, tending to the tulips, pruning the dead leaves, watering the soil. The flowers are blooming with vibrant, shocking color, fed by the rich earth. The court assembles. The new Grand Vizier bows to the Sultan. The world turns. The empire continues, vibrant and cruel and magnificent. And in the fourth courtyard, the wind blows through the cypress trees, whispering through the leaves, carrying no name, no memory, and absolutely no forgiveness. The silence is finally, truly, perfect.